Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Coffee Break, and welcome back to the CoffeeCast ProCast Edition, where I am going to be featuring a wonderful game from the IEM, spawning on the top right-hand side here on Cloud Kingdom. It is going to be our orange Protoss hero, Grubby. On the lower left-hand side, I don't even know what that beep was. What was that beep? I don't know if you guys heard that, but I just got a beep in my headset I've never heard before. I suppose I kind of killed the intro there. Whoa! And another thing that kills the game a little bit is all the SCVs moving to one little area, making a wonky little early game mistake. On the lower left-hand side, we're going to be having our green Terran, Lucifron. And apparently I'm hitting the wrong buttons. Is it? Which one is it? I know one of these makes it go down. Oh, it's end. Ah, there we go. That's what I was going for. Except apparently it doesn't bring it back up. I don't know. I've been experimenting with this a lot on Amateur Attack lately, so I guess I have a little bit more work till I can really start bringing that into the pro accounts without really jacking stuff up. Lucifron is kind of one of those players that really just randomly made a name for himself a month or two back at some tournament. I can't exactly remember which one, to be honest. I've been very poor in keeping up with my tournaments, especially in November, just because there were so many. But he kind of made a big name for himself, especially when he had to play his brother Vortex. One of them ended up winning that game, obviously. Can't remember anything about any of that. But since then, he's repeatedly had to play his brother Vortex over and over in tournaments, and they keep eliminating each other. And it's just like this really super sad story that you always just hate to hear about, because it's just such it's just an awful situation to be put into, having to eliminate your literal brother. Not like, you know, a really good friend, your literal brother who you practice with, who you've been living with all your life, to kick him out of a tournament worth quite a bit of money, let's be honest here. It kind of reminds me a lot of the whole Tasteless Narcosis story. Not Tasteless Narcosis, gosh dang it. The Casting Archon, no. It reminds me a lot of the Tasteless Day 9 relationship, where, you know, they kept having to face each other back in the old Brood War day, kept having to eliminate one another from tournaments. And I remember watching Day 9 Daily 100, long time back, and just Day 9 talking about, you know, how much it just absolutely killed him to have to eliminate his brother from tournaments. And I was just always like the hardest situation ever. So I really feel for Lucifron in that right. However, we do know he is a very, very good Terran player now. Again, one of those people that, you know, not a lot of people had really heard of him, and then suddenly it's like, bam, we have this amazing player who can just pretty much roll faces. Grubby, on the other side of things, has been playing absolutely remarkably lately. He's been going very deep into tournaments, using pretty much any style of play that he wants. He's kind of the White Raw of the Protoss race now. Back when White Raw was actually effective as a Protoss player, rather than just kind of a community head. Let's be honest, White Raw probably not the strongest player on the Protoss side of things right now. He has been playing a lot of Heart of the Storm. I think he's kind of moved past Wings of Liberty. He's been playing the beta for months now. Pretty much ever since the beta came out, he started solely focusing on that, as far as I've been able to tell. So I think that he's just kind of holding out his own until Heart of the Swarm comes out, so that he can kind of try to make a big comeback in that right. But Grubby, on the other hand, Grubby's kind of taking White Raw's place, doing all sorts of interesting play. He is really the innovator and the beginner of that Phoenix play, and has used it very, very often and very, very effectively in PvP. And I'm actually hoping to get around to casting MC versus Grubby, in which I believe that there was at least one game where they went mass Phoenix, like 30 Phoenix plus. I know Day 9 did a daily over it. I didn't watch that daily, but I have seen a little bit of Grubby versus MC, maybe even from that series. I don't know, but I know it should be a fairly interesting game, so I really want to pick those up. However, there aren't a lot of crazy innovations going on in PvT right now, and, you know, one could argue that really it's kind of reached its potential, I think, in Wings of Liberty. I mean, you just can't really use any sort of Stargate play in PvT as a Protoss player, just because Vikings will absolutely decimate any sort of aerial attack you have. I mean, you can... no, you can't even... No, well, you know what? Never mind. Yeah, I'm just going to kind of stick with that statement for now. And the fact that you can't really do all that much Stargate play, so a little bit more relegated to the heavy gateway play and or robotics play. It's kind of your choice on which one you really want to start with. In the end, you're going to have both of them. Did that SCV get close enough to see anything? No, he did not, but he did throw the scan down and see, well, 3 gateways and a robotics. This gives him a vague idea of what's going on, but it actually doesn't reveal all that much, because you can do a 1-gate robo timing attack, or pardon me, a 3-gate robo timing attack. Do you really see it all that often? No. And is Lucifron going to be all that worried about it? Probably not. You can see he's actually just scouting out with some marine, seeing if he can find a forward pylon. And if he doesn't find one, he's probably going to feel just fine, either taking a fast third or continuing on with some sort of 2-base timing attack. Which right now, where is it? Where? You're around here. Where is it? That's a great question. Oh, I guess it's here. Factory is being laid down in the main base right now. We do have obviously the tech lab on one of the barracks, getting the stim pack out. Another barracks working on combat shields as well up on the wall here. And I love the fact, I don't know if this was intentional or not by Lucifron, but he has the stim pack, the barracks researching stim pack further into the base. So if some sort of attack did come up at the front here and this tech lab was getting attacked, it is less likely that stim pack will be canceled as opposed to combat shields, as the stim pack tucked a little bit more safely back into the base. Third command center is on the field already, by the way. I'm just going to be using that for muling power SCVs and now lifting that off and taking an early third base. By the way, I apologize if I miss anything crucial this game. I'm sitting in my room and I have just this awful stun glare coming through the window right now and beating right down on my monitor, like seriously right where the mini map is. So it's kind of a hassle trying to look down in there and seeing what's going on. Starpork is getting the reactor fairly shortly here. It looks like we might be gearing up for a maybe a 2 medevac bio push that we've been seeing. Comes out around the 10:30 point. Can hit around it can hit at earliest 10:30. Generally comes around the 11 to 11:30 mark. Grubby, though, not going to wait for that to happen. Going to be pushing straight over the third base with a small gateway army. This is actually a small but very potent gateway army. Going to be able to do quite a bit of damage to this orbital command, but not take it out. However, SCVs could get picked off. No, going to get those back just in time. I'm going to be using this command center. Actually, just going to land the command center back down. The question is there enough bio here for Lucifron to hold for the moment? Medevacs don't come out for another 30 seconds. Grubby, I don't know. Is he going to risk it? It looks like he is going to try to do a little bit of something here. If he wants to get some damage done, now is the time to do it, though, because as soon as those medevacs pop out, Grubby is going to have to fall back home and wait until he gets AoE onto the field to really be able to do anything. Grubby kind of sees the timing here. I think that he's going to know a little bit of what's going on, and I think that he's going to be wise to fall back here. And yes, he is going to be running back home at this point, going to be securing his own third base. Colossus coming out on the field. If he just kind of parks his army right here, he'll be able to defend both his natural and his third base very, very easily, especially if he gets like a pylon or something over in this area to make sure that bio units cannot come up through the back door. But it looks like Lucifron is going to be giving chase to Grubby's army. Oh, but the Colossus joins the ranks, and I don't think Lucifron's really going to want to engage this at all. He does know the Colossus is on the field now. I would actually be very surprised if he continued to push this at this point in time, because that Colossus is going to be able to just rip apart this bio army. Might try to do a little poke and prod up into the third base. I just realized my music was not enabled. Might try to do a little bit of a prod up into the third base here, but Grubby going to be right on top of that, moving forward. Might have been able to pick off a medevac if he had been just about 2 seconds earlier. Both players are going to be kind of at a stalemate in this in any sort of engagement coming up here, though. And trying to lay down some force shield. Did get a couple units there, not going to be able to get it. Now everything evens out. 114 to 114 supply, and we are going to be safely transitioning for both players into the mid game, which is something that you see a lot of Protoss players having troubles with, is transitioning into that mid game against these sort of bio pushes. But Grubby had the Colossus out pretty much, I mean, right when he needed to. It was a great timing. That first Colossus spawning out, oh gosh, I'm going to make up a time. I think it was around the 11-minute mark, which is about when that double medevac bio push would generally start hitting. So Grubby, I mean, he had a beautiful timing, would have been able to defend against any sort of timing attack like that, and in the end, going to be just fine. And once again, both players up on 3 bases now. Economy showing fairly even for both players. Even in the harvester count, puts Lucifron just a little bit ahead with that muling power. But I mean, that is just pretty much to be expected. In fact, Lucifron really should be cutting SCVs here, as pretty much as a Terran player going into the mid game, you want about 65 SCVs, which is exactly what we're seeing right now. And going into the late game, you actually want to lower that down to about 50 SCVs, and then just use lots and lots of mules to continue your economy A couple of forward pylons are placed down for Grubby in a perfect place for counterattacks here. Going to be able to warp in some zealots and send them into the main the moment that Lucifron moves out, and that is exactly what Lucifron is doing. And guess what? That is exactly what Grubby's going to do. 2 zealots being warped in on the south side of the map. Oh, it looks like some stock is going to be caught a little bit out of position here. Blink, no blink is done yet. It's very close to finishing, but not quite there. Plenty of Vikings on the field right now to be able to counter the Colossus. Well, I don't know, is plenty enough? I do not see the Colossus. There are only 2 Colossus, so it looks like the Colossus might have almost been a little bit of a fake more than anything else, because these Vikings, quite a few Vikings up in the air. If Storm can finish before the stack hits, Grubby just needs to buy a little bit more time. In the meantime, Zealots doing a little bit of damage down here, but are going to be cleaned up by a small group of bio units. Oh, Storm is now completed, and Lucifron going to be in a lot of trouble if he decides to engage this. Feedback on the medevac, definitely a possibility as well. Looks like, oh, can he land force fields? He does have enough force fields. There we go. Some force fields go down. One Storm goes down and instantly melts that. Another medevac about halfway filled goes down as well, and the Vikings die. A great engagement for Grubby, going to completely push back this bio force of Lucifron, and Lucifron going to need to turn that around. Some are getting ghosts out onto the field. Mobility's reactor is on the way, but Grubby is pushing down the throat right now. If only he could have been a little bit more forward with the sentries to force field some of that army off, get another Storm down. Would have been a great advantage for him. One force field going down using the SimCity build against Lucifron. Vikings do manage to pick off 1 Colossus. Probably not going to get the second, though. I don't know. They are actually in a fairly decent positioning. That Colossus is going to keep falling back, Oh, 61 health left on that Colossus. Definitely going to be a nice little victory there for Grubby going into future engagements. A few High Templar, actually. Just 4 High Templar and 4 Zealots being warped in down on the south side once again. And those are going to be joining up with the army. I don't know if he's planning on making these High Templar into Archons. In fact, I don't even know where they went. Oh, yep. Going to be morphing those into Archons. And pushing now into the 4th base, which is somewhat defended as Lucifron's army is fairly close by. Needs to make sure to land these Clutch Storms, pre-splitting his army. Kind of is forfeiting this base a little bit, as he knows he cannot engage that directly. A couple of nice Storms do go down, but out. Oh, there we go. Now there goes the Blast of the Storm, demolishing the Marine count there of Lucifron. But Lucifron does have a nice concave going against Grubby. Does Grubby have quite enough? I don't know if these are charge lots. They are not. They are technically slow lots, I guess you could call them. It's going to be just enough to clean up these initial forces of Lucifron, but are there any reinforcements? Grubby might have a little bit of problem with those, as he does have a somewhat small but fractured army at this point in time. He does have quite a few Zealots remacro down at that southern pylon, though. Lucifron landing his Vikings down. Vikings actually very, very good on the ground, putting out a massive amount of DPS, especially against things like shields that are unupgraded. These Archons could fall very quickly, but no, Archons actually doing quite a bit of damage there to the bio forces. Trying to get into the middle line, just can't quite make there. Now doing another big warping down at the south side of the map. I think Grubby's actually in a great position here. We see 5,000 additional resources lost over for Lucifron there. So Grubby in a great position on his efficiency with his units. It looks like one Archon's going down. Pretty much the second one is dead already. A nice Storm in that mineral line is going to pick off a few SCVs there, warping those into an Archon as well now. 1 Viking stays alive with 3 hit points. I heard a ghost die as well, and Lucifron really cannot afford to lose those ghosts. They are extremely expensive units. He is fairly strapped for cash at this point in time. And Grubby now actually even establishing a 4th base on the top side of the map. Mining time hasn't really been lost too much for either player at this point, though. So Lucifron, I mean, yeah, he lost quite a few workers there. Actually, I guess that's not some. Losing 33 workers to the forces of Grubby. Going to be down a little bit in that economy, but with mules, it's just going to kind of even him out with Grubby, which in Grubby's case is a great, great victory. Beautiful, beautiful water. And at this point, I really don't know if there's much Lucifron can do. He does once again have a nice little contingency of ghosts, but Grubby just has so much more. Grubby is up by 60 supply so far in this game. And I think that's going to be just about it for Lucifron. I mean, with just 1 or 2 Clutch Storms, I don't know, it looks like Grubby has at least sort of re-upped his Colossus production, choosing to go for a Warp Prism next instead of a 3rd or 4th Colossus, instead of an additional Colossus, I will say. And Lucifron really is into a position where he has to take this extra base. His main is now getting mined out. Cannot really afford to sit back on just 2 bases for too long. Charge is now finished, which means that the Zealots are going to be able to get pretty much an insta surround on the bio forces and that's just not going to bode all that well. Is getting a little bit of a pre-split on his army there. Snipes going down on the High Templar, going to pick those off, but still quite a bit of AoE left in the Colossus. Even even an Immortal in here just for good measure, because why not? So many Zealots on the field, going to run straight up on top of those ghosts, and they are going to just absolutely decimate those forces, going to allow the Colossus to get a couple of free volleys in there, and there goes the Bio Forces. Not even the Medivacs can heal them fast enough, and GG for Lucifron and game number 1. I actually just noticed, I swear I hid this at some point in time, my little timer hider there, so I apologize if somebody saw that, if any of you guys saw that, and kind of realized the game was coming to a close at any close point in time. I actually, once again, I swear I closed that. Apparently, I missed it somewhere along the line. A great game 1 from Grubby. I loved his Colossus opening to secure himself for the mid-game transition. And once that that 10:30 to 11:30 push was kind of thwarted, there wasn't going to be much Lucifron could do with that. Grubby decided, okay, I'm safe now. I know he's going to be making Vikings to counter my Colossus. I am going to transition into High Templar, and it was a beautiful transition. There are quite a few Vikings in the air that were, for the most part, rendered useless. It took them quite a long time to be able to shoot down one of the Colossus, as the Stalkers were being very map prevalent, picking off a Viking here, a Viking there in the engagement, blinking backwards. So I think that was a great game by Grubby. Lucifron played a fairly decent game as well. I just think that he got his Ghost out a little bit too late. The storms were already dropping on top of his army. I mean, about half his army was gone by the time he finally got Ghost out onto the field. And that was kind of the selling point there for Lucifron. So maybe if he can be a little bit more aware of what his opponent's doing in game number 2, maybe throw away a couple of mules and use them on scans instead, or maybe just being a little bit more aware with the Vikings, I think he might be in a slightly better position. If you have not already, like me on Facebook. The information is going to be down in the description, right down there. Also, make sure to leave a comment, constructive criticism, positive feedback, whatever you want to, and I would be greatly appreciative of that. Stick around for game number 2 in this best of 3 series. I'm having troubles getting these final words out, apparently. Stick around for game number 2 in this best of 3 series from the IEM. This is Coffee Break, signing out.